For millennia, it was a whisper in the courts of the pharaohs. A real place, yet one that seems to belong to the world of myth. They called it Ta-Netcher, the land of the gods. It was a kingdom said to be overflowing with gold, sacred incense, and exotic animals that seemed to walk straight out of a legend. For centuries, Egypt's most powerful rulers sent grand expeditions to this mystical land, returning with treasures that built their empire and appeased their gods. But there's a 3,000-year-old mystery at the heart of this story. The Egyptians, a civilization of meticulous, documented everything they brought back from the legendary kingdom of Punt, except where it was. No map has ever been found. No coordinates were ever inscribed. For millennia, Punt has been a ghost in history, a lost kingdom on the edge of the known world. But now, all of that is beginning to change. New archaeological evidence is finally challenging everything we thought we knew, revealing a secret hidden in the DNA of mummified animals and forgotten ports along the Red Sea. The story of Punt is not just about a lost land. It's about a powerful African civilization that traded with Egypt as an equal. A kingdom so dismissed that even the pharaohs considered it divine. So what happened to the kingdom of Punt? And are we finally on the verge of revealing its true location?
Great Falcon, guide us. Lord
To really get
two
this,
lands,
we first have to
protect
understand
us.
why Punt held such a powerful grip on the Egyptian imagination. To the people of the Nile, Punt wasn't just a foreign country. It was a spiritual homeland, the ancestral origin of their gods, and so may believed their own civilization. They called it Ta-Netcher, which translates to land of the god, or God's land, a name that evokes a sense of sacred abundance. This wasn't a place of mortals, but a realm touched by the divine. The earliest known expeditions to Punt date back to the mid-25th century BCE, during the reign of pharaohs. He sent a fleet that returned with a staggering quantity of myrrh, the precious aromatic resin used in temple rituals, along with ebony and gold. This established a pattern that would last for over 1,000 years. Punt was the source of Egypt's most sacred and luxurious commodities. These weren't just simple trade goods. They were the fuel for Egypt's religious and royal life. Frankincense and myrrh were burned in the great temples of Thebes, their smoke believed to be a direct link to the gods. Gold from Punt adorned the tombs of pharaohs, and exotic animals populated the royal menageries. The baboon held a particularly special place. The Hamadryas baboon, with its distinctive silvery mane, was seen as the living embodiment of Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. These animals were not native to Egypt, so their very presence was a direct, living connection to the holy land of Punt. They were mummified as offerings, treated with a respect usually reserved for high-ranking humans. But some Egyptian texts suggest an even deeper connection. The powerful female pharaoh Hatshepsut claimed that the god Amen himself described Punt as his personal garden, a place of delight created. This narrative framing turned trade expeditions into holy missions, commanded by the gods themselves. Over centuries, as trade routes fluctuated and were sometimes lost for generations, Punt's reputation grew even more mythical. It became a far-off paradise, a land of plenty. By the time of the New Kingdom, contact had been lost for so long that Punt had faded from a known trading partner into a half-remembered legend. It would take the ambition of one of history's most powerful women to transform that legend back into a reality. Our most vivid window into the kingdom of Punt comes from the reign of Queen Ati, who ruled Egypt in the 15th century BCE. She was one of the most successful pharaohs in history, a woman who, in a world dominated by men, declared herself king. and ruled for over 2 decades of peace and prosperity. To secure her legacy, she needed a grand gesture of piety and economic power. She needed to reopen the sea lanes to the fabled land of the gods. In the 9th year of her reign, around 1473 BCE, Hatshepsut claimed she received a divine oracle from the great god Amen himself. He commanded her to forge a path to Punt, to bring back its marvels for his temple. This was a brilliant political move, framing a massive trade expedition as an act of religious devotion. The preparations were monumental. Hatshepsut commissioned a fleet of 5 massive ships, each estimated to be over 70 feet long, equipped with both sails and oars. These were sophisticated, seagoing vessels. The journey began on the Nile, with the ships sailing to a port in the eastern desert, a recently rediscovered site now known as Wadiga. There, the great ships were painfully disassembled, carried overland through the desert to the Red Sea coast, and then reassembled for the long voyage south. The entire story of this epic journey is immortalized in breathtaking detail on the walls of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. These reliefs are our primary source, a stone documentary of the expedition. They showed the fleet sailing south, and after a long journey, they arrived. The reliefs vividly depict the land of Punt. It was a lush country, filled with palm and incense trees. The people of Punt are shown with dark reddish skin, living in distinctive beehive-shaped huts built on stilts, accessible by ladders, an architectural style that suggests the people adapted to a wet or marshy environment. The Egyptians were met with a warm welcome. The reliefs depict the Puntite chief, a man named Parahu, and his wife, Queen Ati. Queen Ati is famous and controversially depicted as being exceptionally large with a severely curved spine, a feature that has puzzled historians for centuries. The transaction that followed was one of commerce. The Egyptians offered manufactured goods in exchange for the treasures of Punt. The reliefs show Hatshepsuts, men loading the ships to overflowing. The cargo list is staggering. They brought back immense quantities of myrrh and frankincense, and remarkable 31 live myrrh trees, their root balls carefully wrapped in baskets. This was an unprecedented act of botanical transport, an attempt to bring the very essence of God's land to Egyptian soil. The ships were also filled with gold, ivory, and ebony. And then there were the animals. Live baboons, leopards, and cattle were loaded. The return of the expedition was a moment of supreme triumph for Hatshepsut. Her expedition proved Punt was very real, a thriving and sophisticated kingdom. But it also leaves us with the greatest puzzle of all. If the Egyptians documented the journey in such intricate detail, why did they never once mention where it was? Those magnificent reliefs are both a gift and a curse. For historians, they provide undeniable proof of Punt's existence, but offer no clear map. The search for Punt has therefore become one of ancient history's great detective stories. For over 150 years, scholars have debated Punt's location. Early on, some suggested it was on the Arabian Peninsula, in modern-day Yemen, due to its fame for producing frankincense and myrrh. However, the evidence carved into Hatshepsut's temple walls points overwhelmingly towards Africa. The animals depicted giraffes, hippos, and specific types of baboons are native to the African continent, not Arabia. The people of Punt are also depicted as ethnically African, solidifying the consensus that Punt was an African kingdom. With the location narrowed to Africa, the debate shifted to where in Africa. The most prominent theory has long centered on the Horn of Africa, encompassing modern-day Somalia, Djibouti, and Eritrea. This area lies along the Red Sea coast, accessible to Egyptian fleets, and is a historical source for myrrh and frankincense. The modern Somali administrative region of Puntland is even named in honor of this belief. Further evidence came from discoveries back in Egypt. At the site of Wadi Gawat, archaeologists unearthed the remains of an ancient Egyptian harbor. They found ship timbers, rigging, and cargo boxes, some clearly labeled as containing wonderful things of Punt, confirming a maritime route down the Red Sea was used. However, for every clue, there is a complication. Some texts suggest an overland route to Punt was also possible, perhaps through Nubia, leading some to place it further inland. This cooled man Punt wasn't a single kingdom, but a wider trade network that funneled goods to the coast. For decades, the search has been a stalemate. The breakthrough historians needed wasn't in crumbling papyri, but in genetics. The key was hidden inside the very animals the Egyptians had acknowledged, the mummified baboons. For thousands of years, the mummified remains of sacred baboons lay silent in Egyptian tombs and museum collections. No one imagined they held a genetic map that could lead back to the lost land of Punt. For a long time, the hot climate of Egypt and the mummification process were thought to destroy ancient DNA. But with advances in modern technology, scientists decided to try again. A team of researchers first used isotope analysis. By analyzing the chemical signatures of oxygen and strontium in the hair and teeth of mummified baboons, they could determine the geology and water sources of where the animals were raised. They compared these isotopic signatures to modern baboons across Africa and Arabia. The results were a major step forward. The signatures did not match baboons from Yemen or southern Somalia. Instead, they pointed to a specific region, an area encompassing modern-day Eritrea, Ethiopia, and parts of eastern Sudan. This was remarkable, but the team wanted to get even more precise. Their next step was to attempt the near impossible: extract ancient DNA from a baboon mummy. They focused on a specimen dating to a time when trade with Punt was still active, between 800 and 500 BCE. Against all odds, the team successfully sequenced parts of the baboon's mitochondrial genome. They then compared this ancient genetic code to a vast database of DNA from modern baboon populations. The result was astonishingly specific. The mummy's DNA shows a strong genetic link to a very specific lineage of baboons found today along the coastal region of Eritrea. This genetic evidence points directly to a region where, centuries later, the bustling port city of Aglis would rise. The discovery raised a tantalizing question. What if Punt and Aglis were not two different places, but the same trading center separated by 1,000 years of history? The researchers hypothesized that Punt might have been the earlier name for the region that controlled the trade passing through the port later known as Aglis. While not definitive proof, this provides a clear, scientifically backed starting point for future archaeological work. The genetic echo of this lost kingdom was preserved not in stone, but in the sacred remains of its animal exports. The genetic evidence has given us our clearest signpost yet, pointing toward the coast of Eritrea and its surrounding lands. But this revelation solves one mystery only to create others. Was Punt a single, unified kingdom with a capital city waiting to be unearthed? Or was Punt the Egyptian name for a larger trading network? The truth is likely somewhere in between. Meanwhile, the search on the ground continues. While these findings are yet to be fully verified by the international community, they highlight the intense, ongoing search for physical remains of the kingdom. This brings us to the final, most haunting question. What happened to the land of Punt? After the reign of Ramesses III in the 12th century BC, mentions of Punt in Egyptian records become increasingly scarce. A kingdom that was a cornerstone of Egyptian trade and religion for over 1,500 years seems to simply vanish. There was no great war of conquest recorded, no natural disaster mentioned. The disappearance seems to have been a gradually fading away. The decline of Egypt's new kingdom likely played a major role, as Egypt's central power weakened. Its ability to finance and protect long-distance maritime expeditions waned. At the same time, new powers were rising in the region, and trade routes may have shifted. The kingdom didn't necessarily collapse. It may have simply evolved, its identity slowly transforming until the name Punt was lost to time, replaced by new kingdoms and new names. Like the later port of Adulis, the story of Punt is a powerful reminder that history is not a fixed and finished book. Entire chapters can be lost, and great civilizations can be swallowed by time, leaving behind only legends. For centuries, Punt was less than a myth, a footnote in the history of ancient Egypt. But now, through the reliefs on a queen's temple, the remnants of a forgotten seaport, and the genetic code hidden in a mummified baboon, the kingdom of Punt is being revealed for what it truly was. A sophisticated and wealthy African power, a vital center of ancient trade, and a civilization that commanded the respect of the mighty pharaohs. The search for Punt is far from over. Archaeologists now know where to focus their efforts. On the coastal plains and highlands of Eritrea and the wider Horn of Africa. The definitive discovery, the ruins of a Puntite city, or an inscription from the Puntites themselves, still awaits us. But we are closer than ever before to fully uncovering this lost kingdom. The tale of Punt is a testament to the forgotten greatness of ancient Africa and the enduring power of history's greatest mysteries, waiting to be solved. If you're fascinated by the world's lost civilizations, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories. And let us know in the comments what ancient mystery you'd like to see us explore next.
Hit subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten realities of history, tech, and luxury.